the evolution of the diagnostic criteria of preeclampsia-eclampsia. So the diagnostic criteria for preeclampsia has evolved dramatically through the second half of the 20th and the early 21st century. And as the exact cause remains unknown, it's likely that the diagnostic criteria will continue to evolve. But recent guidelines have commonly been updates of previous reports with limited new evidence. And so we undertook a review to critically appraise the evidence that's guided the evolution of the diagnostic criteria of preeclampsia, and use this to discuss how we should define and study preeclampsia in the future. And so what our review really found that some of the key ideas that guided the evolution of a preeclampsia diagnosis were things like consensus or simplicity or statistical limits, and data that directly linked any threshold to outcomes was quite sparse. And this made a lot of sense through the early to mid 20th century, because there was given frequently the paucity of data available. But now that's not such a limitation. And we argue that this isn't how we should diagnose preeclampsia. Criteria should be diagnosed based off factors that predict the prognosis or likelihood of complications. And so research in the future about diagnosing and classifying preeclampsia should be based around two questions. What is the natural course of preeclampsia, and what can we do to alter it? For example, there's a lot of interest in angiogenic biomarkers for diagnosing preeclampsia, but we think it'd be much more important to use these to predict the likelihood of complications, as that's what we're ultimately trying to change. And similarly, it's increasingly clear that women with preeclampsia can have very different hemodynamic states. And might these varying states respond differently to different hypertensive agents? We are yet to find out. And so future research should really be built around these two questions.